Okay, hello. Welcome everyone to this interview with the lovely Lyndsay Lee. How are you, sweetheart?
I'm fantastic.
Yes, you are. Thank you so much for joining in on this little movement I've got going on in the empowerment and what it is, and talking all things empowerment. Before we get started, I just want to ask: are you okay with me recording this? You have permission to dive into all things Lyndsay Lee?
Yes, of course.
Awesome. Thanks, sweetheart. Okay, cool. So what I'd like to do to get started is just hand it over to you to introduce yourself, where you are in the world, and anything you fancy sharing with whomever's listening to this about all things amazing Lyndsay.
All right. That's great. Okay. Tall order. Hello, everyone. I'm so stoked to be here. I am in the States. Currently, there is snow up to my upper thighs, which is so fantastic. I was telling Bex before, I'm really harnessing the inner fire that I've got going on in this season. My name is Lyndsay. I'm a women's mastery coach, and a lot of people actually they're kind of like, what's mastery? What is that about? And really, for me, kind of that is really important leading into freedom, because when we find our personal mastery is when we really become liberated in who we are and totally free. So I am always on my own road to mastery. And within that, I really think of myself as a motivator. First and foremost, I'm a teacher. And I'm a social entrepreneur, and I'm also a runner. Running has been like a massive thing in my life. It's helped me in a lot of personal areas. It's helped me inspire others to make change. It's also helped inspire quite a lot of change in the world. So it's kind of my thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and just when you say running, we're not just talking going for a few K jog, right? There's this little island that you ran across one time.
Yeah. Well, casual. So last May, I actually became the second woman ever to run across the island of Bali. So I participated in something called the Bali Hope Ultra. It was technically the third year. The founder, Tom Hickman, had attempted it 9 months earlier, but didn't quite make it. So he formed this team of 13 extraordinary individuals from around the world. I think we came from 7 different countries. And we came together last May, and we ran 84 kilometers from the top of Bali to the bottom of Bali. And overnight, double marathon. It was absolutely incredible. And the whole reason that we did it, we were really this group of kind of social change makers, like freedom agents. And Tom really brought us all together so that we could raise $100,000 to put 100 kids through school. We almost made our goal last year, but we did end up raising enough to put about 102 kids through schooling. And yeah, it was an extraordinary experience for both me as an individual, for breaking through so many barriers and limiting beliefs that I actually didn't even really know that I was carrying. So, the training for 5 months up to this point was really where all of my work kind of happened. I really had to get my mindset straight, because that's no joke. Like, I really had to visualize, quite literally, running every single step across an island, and then the physical impact of everything on my body, and just getting ready and really finding, actually, I know this isn't, I'm kind of segueing, but that is actually where I found a bulk of my personal empowerment. Surprisingly, like, I have been a leader and a speaker and a writer and a coach for quite some time, but I didn't know that I wasn't fully empowered myself until I stepped up to the challenge to run across an island. And in that 5 months, I became so certain of how extraordinary I am as an individual. And I just let that sink in, quite literally, with every step, one foot in front of the other. Like, I had to become the person I wanted to be to get myself to the end. And it was amazing. I crossed the finish line at 12 hours and 37 minutes. There wasn't a single part of me that thought that I would fail. I knew, I was so certain that I could do it, even in all the challenge and how scary at times it felt, and quite literally how many wild dogs I had to like bat off with sticks. It's 4 a.m. I hadn't seen anyone for an hour and a half. I feel like I'm going crazy. And I'll never forget crossing the finish line, nearly falling over in total tears, so proud of myself, in so much pain. For so many kilometers, all I wanted to do was stop until I got across the finish line. And then it felt weird. Like I was like, I need to keep going. This is so strange. So I'm bawling, I'm crying, and I stand straight up and I start laughing and I say, that was really fun. Let's do it again. And I just, was the best experience.
I love that. So you can see why I asked the lovely Lyndsay to speak about all things empowerment, because that experience, and I know we just talked about this before, to be able to get out from behind the screen, and there's so much in the world, which I'm not discrediting, it has its place, of the 7 steps to fabulousness, or how to do whatever, and that's all part of it. But then at some point you got to put that shit to the test and go, what am I made of? Because like you said, you don't know what you don't know until you actually really step up for an experience, which is, obviously my big deal. I love that. Putting yourself in different places. So I love that you also have that social impact and the stuff that you've done and help create bigger than you whilst in your own. So it wasn't instead of, it was as well as. I'm a big change your or to ands, people. You can have this and that and that. When someone says, do you want this or this? I don't understand the question. I'll have both. That's kind of how it works. I love it. Okay, so I would really love to go, I don't know, what's something you fancy sharing about your empowerment, your wisdom around it? What would you like to share around empowerment specifically?
Okay, so I think the first thing that came to mind for me is never give up. And this is a big thing for me. So my journey started about 10 or 11 years ago. And in that time, 10 or 11 years ago, I was really kind of deep in the questioning, the understanding. What am I here for? What is my purpose? Just incessant with trying to understand. And at that point, I didn't really know that there was a ton of healing that I was going to get to go through, and there was a ton of lessons that were going to be thrown at me. And I think looking back on with the lens of who I am now, I'm just so proud that I never gave up, because every time I came to a hurdle, or every time I came to a place that just kind of felt like it sucked, I only let it suck for a small amount of time, and then I made myself get over it. And I say that really intentionally. Like, we have to make ourselves get over shit. Like, staying stuck in the story, it's old, man. Like, let it go. And I don't take that lightly. I've done I've done years of healing work to let my stuff go. But I think what the important part of that is being active in your journey of letting things go so that you can become the person that you want to be and desire to be. And so for me, empowerment really comes from that seed, that like fire in the belly, and knowing that nothing can take that fire away. Like, that fire will never go away. It can get really small, and it can be really big and crazy and all over the place. Ultimately, it's our choice. So we get to choose what our own empowerment looks like. We get to choose how empowered we are. Honestly, something that is dropping in for me as well is a big piece of it is that it starts in the body. And this is, a lot of my background is in cleanse and detox. And I used to work at a retreat center in Bali running the cleanse and detox or helping run the cleanse and detox programs, and really starting to understand the body as foundation. And I think that's why running really is clicks for me as well. And so speaking of like that fire in the belly, and then what do we want to do with it? Do we really feel empowered when we're like sitting like this, and when we're kind of, you're like kind of hunched over? Or do you feel good when you're in your body and you're expressive? And for me, that came because I had a lot of digestion issues, and I felt really sick for 13 years of my life, every single day for 13 years. And I really became like this, like hunched over, because I was protecting, because I felt sick. And it was my choice to heal. And in that decision and the years that followed of that healing, I got myself back. I got my body back. And now I'm in my body. And so I think the last little bit that I would say is anything that makes you feel, anything that makes you move is probably something that is ultimately going to help you also feel empowered. So like dance a little more.
I love that. Okay, so that's part of the next part around hot tips. You know, Lyndsay's hot tips to all things empowerment. I'm assuming move. What else?
Move.
Yeah. What would you share as your 3 hot tips, honey?
Yeah. Okay. So movement. If you're not a runner, I don't care. Dance, climb, whatever. Hot tips for empowerment. Honestly, feed the body well. No question about it. Feed it good whole foods and drink a ton of water, more water than you think you need. And those 2 things, really, body as foundation in order to rise. Another thing that's really powerful for me, changing language. So from an empowered place, we use statements like I am, or we use language that feels and sounds certain. So changing language in order to really recreate neural pathways in the brain that help us feel more positive and more empowered. And daily ritual practice, no ifs, ands, or buts. Getting up, a lot of people ask my morning routine. The short version is I get outside, I get a little bit of fresh air. Usually that's taking my dog out. I move a little. Sometimes it's outside. Sometimes it's 5 minutes of yoga even. And then I meditate. No question. I meditate and I go within, and then I journal and I read. And sometimes even these things are 5 to 10 minutes each, but I do them all because it really helps open me up and helps me anchor into myself before I anchor into anything else. And that is the key. Whatever anchors you into yourself are the things that you get to commit to with no excuses, even if they're hard. Like on some days I'm like, man, I do not want to sit here and meditate. This is such a drag. And then I come out of meditation and I'm never like, wish I wouldn't have done that. So I think just really sinking into your own rituals, getting into your body, feeding the body and the mind really well. Like be really aware of what you are digesting, basically.
Yeah, I love that. I put a post up the other day about like, let's get clear about what we're really eating up each day. Like, what are we really eating? That's cool. So movement, get that momentum, the movement happening, reorient the language, be really mindful. I always believe that words mean things and there's energy in words. So I love that you've brought that piece, because I don't think anyone's mentioned that yet, around the language. It's great evidence to track yourself of where you're really at. You can hear it in your voice, in your words. And your daily practice stuff. I love that. That's really cool. Very, very cool. Thank you so much, sweetie, for taking the time to share and be all things. Like you can just feel it oozes out of you. And I love that everyone has a different way of doing that. But some people have a gap between what they say and how they are empowered, and you live it, you experience it, you're pushing yourself to really test what you don't know that you don't know. And I just, really honor that you're the living example of that in the world and inspire so many people. So thank you, and I can't wait to see you very soon. So thanks, sweetie.
Woo! Thanks for having me.